Welcome back to the channel, guys. Yes, hi, hello there. Now, we're going to be shifting gears for a little bit out away from normal multiplayer and head into Warzone. If you watch my channel and you have not yet tried Warzone, I really recommend you do because it's some of the most fun you can have on this game, especially if you have a team that communicates. Now, with that being said, I want to talk about shotguns, naturally, of course, and how they work in Warzone. Now, as you know, Warzone, you have about 250 health points overall because of those 3 armor plates you can carry. With this in mind, and with the giant map and how open engagements tend to be, the shotgun meta is slightly different in Warzone. In this video, I just wanted to talk about the shotguns as a whole and go over ones that I think shine in Warzone and Plunder and give you general recommendations on which ones I think you should definitely give a try and my pick for my 3 best shotgun setups in Warzone. Since custom matches in Warzone aren't really allowed, my testing is somewhat limited and not as in-depth as it could be, but I played mostly Plunder to get some good testing done for my classes. In standard multiplayer, the one-shot shotguns generally reign supreme. Now I'm looking of course at the Model 680 and the 725. Anything that can one-shot the enemy and get them out of your face is generally really strong and works pretty well in its intended range. These shotguns that generally one-shot enemies have drawbacks like a lower rate of fire or low shell count overall. Now while that's generally okay in multiplayer, Warzone switches things up. Guns like the 680, which fire powerful one-shots to kill enemies, can't really do that in Warzone in most cases you find yourself in. Yes, you can down enemies with a little armor in one shot, and yes, you can break the enemy's 3 plates of armor with one shot, but sometimes that's all you get is that one shot. And that's if all or most of your pellets hit, and if you can manage to find someone alone. And let me preface this by saying, all shotguns have a place in Warzone and can be used effectively, but some are more forgiving and more usable and suitable for Warzone as opposed to the others, in my humble opinion. In Warzone, an important thing to keep in mind with choosing guns is your damage per second, or your DPS. Generally, with the higher health, you want guns that can effectively take out enemies really fast, and to use guns that can send some major lead downstream. Guns like the 680 and 725 have their limits, unfortunately, in Warzone, especially with the weird inconsistencies that plague them in both Warzone and multiplayer. Using something like the 680 in trios or quads can be pretty rough and tough to do. Like I said, it's possible, you can wipe squads, but the moment another player comes into your view after you've been pumping shells in one, you'll probably end up getting downed. Dragon's Breath is somewhat of an exception, but I'll get into that later. With buckshot, guns like the 680 are going to be more difficult and unforgiving to use. That's just how it goes. The 725 is slightly different, but the general idea is still kind of there. With the 725, you get 2 fast-firing shots. With that, you can break the enemy's armor in one shot and then quickly down the other with the second shot. I actually had a pretty fun time using the sawed-off 725, a gun I've literally never ever seen in Plunder or Warzone being used, and the 2-tap downs were really satisfying. But of course, as soon as the second person comes in, you get caught with your pants down and trying to jump around while you have to reload. The 680 and the 725 with buckshot are strong, but are really unforgiving, and so I found them to be a bit harder to do as well with, especially if you're really aggressive. Usually, if I find myself running the 680 normally or picking it up, I still sometimes get those weird hit markers where not much damage was done, so it ends up taking like 4 shots to down or even kill someone. Since the focus on damage per second is really good for Warzone, shotguns like the Origin 12, the Rogue, and the R90 can shine a little bit more than in normal multiplayer, especially guns like the Origin 12. Now in Warzone, slap on the 25-round drum magazine and just get to blasting. With 25 rounds and a faster fire rate, and the fact that you can still take down fully armored players in 2 to 3 shots, it makes the Origin 12 an absolute devastating beast in Warzone. If you miss a shot or two, who cares? Fire another 10 at the enemy's face and watch their armor break down super quick. Even running into 2 enemies doesn't always have to be a problem, as long as they're close enough together. In the time it takes you to fire 3 shotgun blasts normally, you can have 6 to 8 in your enemies with the Origin. Now at a range, as you would imagine, you're still going to be at a disadvantage with MP7s, MP5s, and M4s running around, but if you play it smart and know how to move, you can take these guys out with no problem. Aiming down sights is pretty helpful generally with the shotguns, and it's no exception with this one. If you're slightly past maybe 7 meters or so, I do encourage you to try aiming down sights to tighten the pellet spread just a little bit more. Up close though, just spam away. It works really well, and I encourage you guys to level up the Origin to get the 25-round drum magazine. It's totally worth it. With the R90, I always thought of this gun as a hybrid 725 mixed with the 680. You get 2 fast-firing shots with great damage and a pump in between that's about as fast as the 680's pump speed, but with similar damage. It takes the best of both worlds, and in Warzone, it's another monster of a gun that just isn't used that much. at least late game. Generally, you can find the R90 laying around as a common or rare drop, and the Origin is more of a legendary or epic drop. But the R90 is a great balanced shotgun in Warzone all around. If you aim down sights, you can get much more range than the Origin, and those 2 shots can still break the enemy's 3 plates of armor pretty easily if you're getting those pellets on target where they should be. Plus, it holds 14 shells, which means you get a lot of shots before you need to reload it. And in Warzone, that's another great perk to have with a gun. Again, I do recommend aiming down sights as much as you can with the R90, but if the enemies just sort of pop out at you as you walk through a door, the R90 is more than capable of just hip firing and killing people pretty darn easily. What about the VLK Rogue, the worst gun in the game? Well, it fares decently, I guess. In Warzone, it still kind of performs underwhelmingly. It's got a decent fire rate, but the damage really just isn't there. It can still one-tap full armor though and destroy all 3 plates, but if you haven't figured it out yet, every shotgun in Warzone can if you're close enough. But it still acts weird and just feels weaker than every other shotgun in the game, even in Warzone. The fire rate is the redeeming factor here, but don't expect to be able to take out multiple people with it. A huge, however, though, is Dragon's Breath. So let's go ahead and talk about it on the 680 and the Rogue. In Warzone, the 680 with Dragon's Breath has been another super underrated setup that can actually destroy people. The normal buckshot 680, take it or leave it, but with Dragon's Breath, absolutely take it. You get the initial burst of damage with the burn damage after that, which can brutally take down enemies in 2 shots. And if someone else is standing next to the enemy, the pellets have a good chance of hitting them too and causing some burn damage. For the 680 though, it seems like it hasn't been performing as well as it used to. I'm not sure if it's gotten a nerf or something under the radar, but I've noticed it isn't quite as effective as it used to be. It's still super good though, and it could just be a placebo since I can't really test all this stuff in a custom match. The VLK Rogue though, I'm gonna go ahead and say it, is hands down the strongest shotgun I've used in Warzone. It has gnarly damage with a decent fire rate as far as shotguns go, and you can run and gun with this thing pretty effectively even in Warzone. I don't recommend going for long shots, but in that 10-meter range, enemies are gonna be falling over pretty fast if you can get those 2 shots out quick. And the nice thing about the burn damage is that you can duck in and out of cover and still have that burn do work and take their shields out. Also, the burn is incredibly annoying and almost distracting when you get shot by it, so it has this sort of mental effect on enemies when you use it. It sort of like instantly activates panic mode in a lot of players, and sometimes they end up just running away from you if you manage to get at least 1 shot on them. If you've seen my video on the VLK Rogue and Dragon's Breath and how it affects it, you'll know that it basically functions as a just overall buff for the gun. The 1-shot range is increased, and there's also a 1-shot burn distance that gets people from pretty darn far in multiplayer, and in Warzone it's also pretty devastating to use, so I really encourage you guys to level it up and try using Dragon's Breath on the Rogue. So now that I've touched on all the shotguns just a little bit, I want to go ahead and give you guys 3 setups that I've been using in Warzone with some good success. First off, probably the strongest of the bunch is the VLK Rogue class with Dragon's Breath. Now basically identical to my multiplayer setup for the gun, the key thing here is Dragon's Breath, and make sure you're using either the Tsar barrel or the Warlord barrel for best effect. The Warlord barrel has just as much range as the Tsar barrel, but the aim down sights time is much quicker than on the Tsar, so I generally have the Warlord barrel equipped so I can be a bit more mobile. The Marauder is also a great attachment to use because it buffs up the damage range by a few meters, and it also keeps you off the radar, which is important in Warzone. I use the 5mW laser for a quicker, snappier sprint out time, but you can choose to use the 1mW laser if you want, if you don't like that green laser. Then last, I run the no stock attachment to really boost up that aim down sights time as much as I can so that the suppressor doesn't make it too much slower overall. For my secondary, it's basically whatever, it's up to you, but I usually run a launcher to take out vehicles and also to weed out pesky campers if I have to, but you could also use the Renetti in its 3-round burst mod if you want an overall balanced and quick sidearm. But don't use the 357 Snake Shot Akimbo. Do not be that guy, just don't. In terms of perks for these classes, Ghost is usually a must for me, and I run Amped so I can switch to my secondary much quicker than normal, and EOD to protect myself from RPGs and claymores and all that. The perks help me, but to me the most important part is going to be the gun setup. I use these perks in secondaries almost always, and I usually end up switching out my secondary in-game anyway for some sort of long-range gun or an SMG so that I'm not just confined to close range with a shotgun. I would recommend Overkill, but since Ghost is so important and since ARs and SMGs are so plenty around this giant map, it's usually a good idea to just get your loadout and then just switch your secondary to something better, like an MP7 or something you find laying around. Next up, we have an overall balanced shotgun class using the R90 with its longest barrel, the TAC Sentry barrel, and then the monolithic suppressor. The goal with this is to get the best 2-tap range you can, so with these two attachments it's going to help much more. Then use the 5mm laser and stippled grip for a fast sprint out time overall, and the close quarter stock to get a faster aim down sights time. The secondary and the perks for this class and the next class, like I said, are the same as the one I mentioned before, and feel free to play around with them as you choose. My last class is probably the most fun. It's the Origin 12 Spammy class, which has the Origin and Precision barrel, along with the 25-round drum mag, the 5mm laser, no stock, and stippled grip tape. The Precision barrel is close to the Impaler barrel in terms of range, but with less speed penalties overall, and the muzzle attachments didn't really help this gun that much, and considering it's a spammy gun, you want to focus on being mobile and getting as many shots out in a quick time as possible with the Origin. Try this class out for sure and let me know how it goes. And that is just about going to do it for this video, guys, and my thoughts on the best shotguns for Warzone and my 3 favorite shotgun classes to run overall. Now, shotgun slugs are also a thing, and if you're wondering how they perform in Warzone, well, you might be able to expect a video on that sometime in the near future, but don't get your hopes up because I'm not sure I really want to put myself through that kind of punishment, but we'll see, so keep your eyes peeled for that. So give my classes a try. Make sure to try out Dragon's Breath on the Rogue to burn those enemies, and then use the 25-round drum mag to spam enemies to death. And shotguns are a lot of fun when they work well in Warzone, and these setups can definitely help you see more of these team wipes and those armor breaks. Running a shotgun won't always put you in an advantageous position, as I'm sure you're aware, as compared to an SMG, but it sure is a lot more fun to down people with a flaming shotgun shell than a predictable MP5 with no recoil. Let me know what you guys think of the shotguns for Warzone. Do you agree with my thoughts? Are the 680 and 725 better than I give them credit for? Be sure to comment down below, and with all of that being said and out of the way, I want to wish you all a happy day/night, and I will see you in the next video.